Joining us from online. Asanka, over to you. Asanka is a research fellow, Institute of Policy Studies.
Thank you, Dr. Columbage. I think you all can hear me. I will share my screen.
We can hear you loud and clear and see you clearly.
Okay. Dear all, I'm Asanka Wijesinghe. I will rush to the presentation as there is a time limitation. If you notice trade connectivity as a strategic tool, I removed the green part because I'm not going to talk about that much. My expertise is in trade. So EU-Sri Lanka trade has a long history because of the colonial ties. And in gravity-based theoretical models, we can show that these colonial linkages reduce trade cost. And currently, we have non-reciprocal trade concessions from EU. You know about that. It is GSP+. We don't need to give any concession to the EU. Under this scheme, the EU reduced the tariff on our products. For the EU, this mechanism gives an opportunity to transfer low-tech manufacturing to Sri Lanka and profit and efficiency-seeking investment. EU firms can invest in sectors with high preferential margin. That means the difference between most favored nations tariff and GSP plus tariff, which are equal to zero in most commodity groups. So bilateral trade based on utilizing factor cost advantages and comparative advantage is a way forward for the EU and Sri Lanka in increasing trade relations. Before the pandemic, about 3.57 billion of exports went to EU. From Sri Lanka, it is about 30%. And low-tech manufacturing products dominated these exports. As an example, the apparels, ready-made apparels and tires, men's and boys' T-shirts, those products actually dominated. These are low-tech manufacturing products. So EU is the major market for Sri Lanka's seafood. That's a really important factor because about 1/4 of Sri Lanka's labor force is in agriculture sector, and a considerable workforce is involved in fishery. Most of Sri Lanka's exports are covered by GSP+. This GSP+ induces forward and backward linkages because of the reduced trade costs. As an example, because of Sri Lanka has a preferential access to the EU market. So EU firms can export raw materials to Sri Lanka for those firms producing the final goods. So the EU can become a supplier of raw materials. As an example, currently EU export these knitted and crocheted fabrics, parts of electric sound and visual signaling apparatus, medicament and narrow woven fabrics. Other than this medicament, all the other products are used as raw materials in the production process. For Sri Lanka, trade is a really important thing because trade-led growth strategy is the way forward for Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka is a small country, less resource endowments and a small consumer base. So even if we try to produce everything here without trading with other countries, we need to import capital products and intermediate products because of we don't have those endowments within the country. So EU is a large market for raw materials and final products. Other thing is the importance is EU's trade concessions are non-reciprocal. As I said, the GSP+. Why does it matter? We have a lot of regional trade agreements with South Asian nations and also other free trade agreements with bilateral free trade agreements with the region's countries. But our study, this will be published soon in Journal of Asian Economic Integration. We found that In almost all the sectors, agriculture, food, textiles, and total trade, the impact of regional trade agreements on export flows is trivial, or sometimes it is negative due to these regulatory barriers within the trade agreements. As an example, rule of origin. And our countries maintain a huge sensitive list that are not eligible for further tariff cuts. But if you look at this GSP impact on South Asian countries' trade, you can see, especially in agricultural products, this EU GSP Plus has a positive impact. However, in food exports, it has a negative impact. I will talk about that later. The point is, EU trade concessions has produced a positive impact on our agricultural exports. Key such export is seafood. You can see Sri Lanka's seafood exports in this graph, in this figure. The orange color shows the exports to the EU. You can see this plunge around 2011. That's when we lost GSP Plus to the EU. And around 2014 end, we had this IUU red card, illegal, unregulated, and underreported fishing. So our exports, seafood exports to the EU plummeted. So EU is a really important market for Sri Lanka. There is another thing. As I showed you, our most of our products are low-tech manufacturing products like garments. We need to diversify that into high-tech complex products. As an example, it's a chapter 85, electronic and electric equipment. So we have a robust growth in this sector. Last year also, we recorded about 420 million exports. But you can see around 2010, the growth of that sector's export to EU collapsed because of these GSP Plus concerns. So strategically and economically, EU concessions are really important. The key sectors benefited are the ones that employ economically marginal workers in the agriculture sector, most of the case. And agriculture sector is about 1/4 of the labor force in Sri Lanka. This is a really important sector, even politically. So for the EU, Sri Lanka is a destination for investment and trade through forward and backward linkages. About this Indo-Pacific strategy, you can see EU's emphasis on a rule-based trade based on multilateral institutes, as an example, WTO. So implementing and enforcing comprehensive trade agreements with Japan, Republic of Korea, Singapore, and Vietnam are other strategies. What are the opportunities and challenges? So open trade will allow Sri Lanka to trade based on comparative advantage, so we can increase the economic efficiency. Preferential access, as an example, GSP Plus will allow the EU to profit and efficiency seeking investments, and we can diversify into high-tech manufacturing. The EU-US trade relationship and the supply chain realignment is another opportunity we have. US is going to realign their supply chain, taking the supply chains away from China, especially in commodities like semiconductors and EV batteries. So obviously, US will look into the allies like EU. So we can develop supply chain with the EU countries, as an example, exporting graphite for EV batteries. So trade with EU will help Sri Lanka for poverty alleviation, increasing income and efficiency. And tangible economic benefits will bolster strategic alliances. Challenges are actually Sri Lanka is following import controls. EU, with their thrust for a rule-based open trade, actually they issued a statement sometimes ago about these import controls. Either we will have to notify them to WTO and make sure we are playing this game based on the international rules, especially WTO stipulated rules. The other challenge is the link between human rights and GSP Plus. We are happy to see that both parties, EU and Sri Lanka government, engage in the recent discussions about this GSP plus. We are optimistic that this will be solved. So EU leverage to GSP plus and political sentiments are challenging these strategic alliances. Other thing is rules of origin. As an example, for our textiles, we need to make sure that certain percentage of value addition is coming from Sri Lanka or region. That kind of inhibit our exports to the EU. So we need to discuss to expand this cumulation rule. In that case, we can increase the utilization ratio. Other thing is that when the EU will okay, my time is so I will wrap this up. When the EU will go for trade agreements with the other countries, especially if they are our competitors, then we will be affected by trade diversion effect. As an example, if they go for free trade agreements with Vietnam, then if we are exporting textiles to EU, then our exports will be not competitive in the EU market. So we need to discuss about strategies how to overcome those challenges. And we need to make sure that our trade policy will be in compliance to WTO framework. And from the EU side, these non-tariff measures and sanitary and phytosanitary measures, they are kind of discouraging our exports to the EU. We are, of course, supporting these green initiatives, but green initiatives can increase our compliance cost. So we need to make sure Sri Lanka is ready for those challenges. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, it is about 11 minutes. Thank you very much.
Asanka, thank you. You are spot on. Thank you so much. And you highlighted that one of the points